So we're going to take a look at some of the challenges of being able to eat nutritiously when you're on a tight budget, and also what are some of the strategies that you can maybe incorporate. And I'm hoping that you will also have some that you'll maybe be able to share with the group today. So when I sort of sat and really thought about what are the challenges, one is right in the title. It's the idea of the budget of, how much money do you have to actually be able to spend on your food? And even if we're talking about grocery shopping, that'll encompass everything, like your cleaning products and your laundry soaps and all of those types of things. So one of the challenges is going to be, I only have a certain amount of money. Going along with that, and one of the biggest deterrents I see when I talk to students is like, I don't have time. I just don't have time. I don't have time to shop. I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to prepare. You're really busy. And even with this online environment, I was talking with some of the 241 students this morning, and I'm thinking that they're watching a 20-minute lecture online, and they're saying, well, it's actually taking me over an hour because I have to keep going back and I'm trying to figure out my notes and do everything else. So even though you're not commuting up to the university and things, your time is can be a real challenge for being able to shop and prepare nutritious food. Another big one that sort of goes hand in hand is the location of where you get your food from. Like, do you have a grocery store or some sort of food market nearby that's fairly reasonable in terms of its prices? Or are you is your closest proximity one that's a really expensive type of store, but, again, because of convenience or time, or as we see with our lack of perhaps transportation, that you are maybe a little bit challenged about where you can get your food from. So the location of the stores that you can shop at, and then also, do you have access to transit? Are you riding your bike? Are you walking? Are you taking the bus? Or do you have a vehicle? All of those things could challenge your ability to shop the way that you would like to. So, and then finally, one of the other ones I want to bring up, and this is something that maybe just trying to make you aware of, is that we have huge waste in our households. And I think one of the big challenges of when we're trying to shop on a budget and eat nutritiously is being really aware of, do we waste food? And, it's some ridiculous amount, like 1,100 kilograms of food per household in Canada is thrown out per year, and most of that, if we take a look at it, is your vegetables are about 30% of what's thrown out. Your fruit is about 15. So almost half of the food that we throw out is going to be our vegetables and fruit that, we buy with good intention to eat, but lands up being thrown away. So I think some of the challenges is trying to figure out too, not throwing away food, because if you buy a pineapple and it's a $5 pineapple and you end up throwing it out because you don't cut it up and eat it in time, you might as well have taken that $5 and thrown it down the toilet. So, or maybe not the toilet because that'll clog it, but you know what I mean. So what I want you to do is think about some of the challenges that you have that maybe are the barriers that make you sort of go, well, these are the things that are preventing me from shopping or eating the way I'd like to, and then try to start to come up with some solutions of the ways that we can get around that. And I'm going to sort of start on some of that today, and then please do add if you have any ideas or any other questions as we go. Okay, so some of the first steps really are even before you start to head out to grocery shop and do those types of things. And one of the very first ones is track your spending. And sort of in preparation for this, I did this in December, which was not a good month to do this, let me tell you. And I was flabbergasted at how much money I was spending, and it wasn't even just on groceries. It was and I didn't think I ate out, but I counted things like going and getting takeout and bringing it, or ordering things as eating out, and I was blown away with how much money I was spending. So just like you can't really plan a road trip to a destination unless you know where you're going and sort of figuring out your route on the map. The same thing you need to do when you're really trying to get a hold of your budget and eating nutritiously on it is track your spending, and it's only you that has to see it. So be Ruthfully, that's good. Can you tell I was teaching this morning? Ruthlessly honest with yourself. So how much are you spending on groceries? How much are you spending on, hey, I'm just going to stop and, pick up a quick prepared snack, at a store. So, if you do something like buy a pizza slice from somewhere, really that's eating out. So track them, put those into those two main categories. Another one, if you consume alcohol or other beverages, Starbucks, coffee, any of those, I would even put another category for that to take a look at how much you're spending on those types of things as well. So that's one of the first things to do. Okay? The other one is to really think about the best stores for your budget and your eating style, because sometimes the store that's the closest to you isn't going to be the one that's going to have the best produce or materials that you want to have. And again, like Liam said, we all have very different sort of ethics and other considerations around how and what we eat, but we also sometimes have that with where we shop as well. Some people are really great there to go to Costco or to go to Walmart. Other people are, no, I want to be able to shop local and support local stores. So that's another thing for you to think about is sort of where do you fall within that, and then start to research what are your best stores that you like. Do you want to go to somewhere? I'm in Victoria, so we have things like the Root Cellar and Red Barn that sell a lot of local and fresh produce. We have lots of farm stands and things around, but I have a vehicle. I can get to those if I need to. We know that some stores, places like Walmart or some of the bigger chain stores, can sell some of those boxed staples for less than what you might find at somewhere like a Thrifty's or a Save On. So find the best stores. What are the ones that are going to be accessible for you? That's something for you to think about as well. So a couple of other things before you go, and this is a really big one, especially when we talk about that food waste, is try and plan your meals. Like whether you make it that it's something that you do towards the end of your weekend, or maybe you do it towards the end of your week before you go into the weekend. Try and plan at least some of your meals for that week, so that when you go shopping, you're not just sort of going, oh, what should I get? And you're kind of throwing some things in your buggy thinking, well, I'm sure I'll make something with that this week. Because then if you don't, then that goes into the food waste and you're throwing money out the window. So I was telling my partner who lives in the States about this talk, and he lives on his own down there. And he said, you can tell them, I know that a single banana costs me 21 cents. And the reason that he knows that is that he will buy a single banana at a time because he doesn't want to waste anything. And so he said, and he lives close to the store. He said, well, I'll just go back and buy one 2 days later if I want another banana. So really plan your meals and what you like to eat. And the other big one is find coupons, particularly for some of those other types of things that you might need to get, like laundry detergent or dish soap and those types of things. You can very often find coupons in sort of local flyers, or even being sent to you by some of the different stores and things as well. So coupons can actually save you quite a bit of money. So, but planning your meals, so important to just give yourself a rough idea. Another big one that I really encourage is investing in storage containers. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but one of the biggest sucks on our pocketbook and our money is when we go and buy things like this, right? So here's like a cute little hummus. Like, look at that thing. That's just awesome. Really handy for throwing in your lunch with your snacks and, everything else. But, and same thing with these that have like cheese and almonds and everything else, like so quick and easy to throw in. So expensive to buy when we really take a look at what we're doing. So you can make these easily for yourself and just store them in some great containers and be able to take those containers with you. It's a huge cost savings. This hummus, if we take a look at normal hummus somewhere like Thrifty Foods, you'd be maybe spending between $3 and $5 for a container of hummus. You can make that same amount of hummus, in fact more of it, for less than 85 cents. If you buy your can of chickpeas, or you can get dried chickpeas and soak them, add your tahini and garlic and all that kind of thing, you could make a ton of hummus for about 85 cents that that can get you through at least a week's worth of food. So storage containers are something that really can become your friend, whether you are okay with sort of the Ziploc ones or you get the glass containers with the lids. It's wise to invest in storage containers. Same thing when I looked at this, these balance breaks. I don't know if you've seen them before. They have like the little bits of cheese, and then this one has almonds and craisins. Again, if you buy these at a convenience store or anything else, they're usually about $2 or $2.50 per one. When I measured out sort of and made one on my own here, it cost me less than 70 cents worth of materials to put into one. So those types of things, you can get really inventive. And if you take a look at the types of snack packs that you like, you can certainly make them for yourself. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to show you this because this is like, my dog thinks that the cheese just came out and she wants the cheese. So she's all excited. She's like, hey, I can see the cheese. No, Haven, it's not for you. All right, so a couple of other things. When you go to the store, one, stick to your grocery list. It gets very enticing when you get to the store to sort of go, oh, that looks good, and I'll get other things. So a big part of that planning is that, okay, here's my budget and this is what I'm going to buy. And then you know about how much money you're going to be spending, because you know, if you just go and you're just going to buy, all of a sudden you get to the till and it's a $90 bill and you just went in there to get, you know, $15 or $20 worth of stuff. So really stick to your grocery list and have an idea how much you expect to spend when you go. The other big one they always say is don't shop hungry, because that's when other things start to look really good. And there's no point shopping hungry even if you go to Costco now, because they don't even have samples anyway. So just make sure that when you're going shopping that you're hydrated and you're not hungry. The other one is that if there are things that are on sale that you know that you will use that won't expire. So if it's going to be maybe something like if you like coffee and it's on sale, you know, buy a few packs at the point that it's on sale and store them. Or if it's laundry soap and you know that you'll use that laundry soap, then buy it. That's a good time to buy sale items. It's not a good time to buy sale items and have a whole bunch, but then have to throw things out because they expire. So that stock up is in the right circumstances. And the same thing with buying in bulk. That if you've got a friend that you can go and shop with, and usually if you can buy bigger quantities of things, they tend to be less expensive. So, you know, if you're a big fan of cornflakes, but you know, you're not going to get through a whole huge family size box of cornflakes. If you've got another friend who likes them too, and you go and buy a big box and you each divide it up and put it into your own sort of storage containers, buying the bigger box is going to be less expensive than buying the smaller boxes, the individual size ones. So whenever you can, if you can buy in bulk and sort of almost do a co-op share with friends or roommates, that can be a really, really effective budget friendly way to go. Any questions or anything so far? Okay. Another big one, and this is just for if individuals are meat eaters, if you are looking at a tight budget, one of the things that we know is that meat can be one of the more expensive things that is bought. So trying to even for a few meals a week or a few days a week, whatever you'd be comfortable with, try and replace the meat with other types of high quality proteins. And because you will find that really does help your budget as well. And usually the meatless protein sources are also very nutritious as well, not only giving us a really good source of protein, but often a lot of other fiber and vitamins and minerals and things. So that could also be one of the things that you challenge yourself to do, that if you normally have, you know, meat 7 days a week, that perhaps you try to make, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 days of meat, that you actually go towards a more vegetarian type of option. So, and that can help with the budget. Another big one is trying to buy produce that's in season. You know, it's because if it's in season, that means that it's going to be fresher and it's going to last longer. It's the same thing with trying to buy locally if you can as well. The closer that the produce is to where you live, if that's where it's produced, the fresher and younger it's going to get in terms of its shelf life to the shelves in your grocery store. If you are buying things that are coming from other places, so you know, if you love mangoes or you love avocados or pineapple, obviously we don't grow those here, so those products will have been in transit for longer. So if you're buying those, you should eat those first, and things that you're buying that are local will last a little bit longer. So again, think about the timing of the food, about when you're going to consume it or use it. If you buy the products that's in season, it's going to be the freshest. You know, I always kind of look at people when they're buying apples in April and May, and I think, wow, like, you know, when apples are picked, right? In BC, it's not in April and May. So maybe that isn't the best fruit for that time of year. And certainly people used to eat really seasonally, and we've gotten to the point that we have most things available to us year round. And but that seasonal eating is a really, really effective way to go in terms of making sure that your food lasts as long as it can. Another one that in terms of the nutrition, if you have things that aren't in season, but you absolutely love them or want them, your best option then is to buy frozen fruits and vegetables. One, they tend not to go bad, particularly if you store them well and you use them within a reasonable amount of time. Just because they're frozen doesn't mean that they don't expire, but they do last a lot longer than fresh vegetables or fruits will. So if you're looking at things like smoothies or even doing things for soups or those types of things, frozen fruits and vegetables can be a really, really effective way to buy very nutritious food at very reasonable costs and not worry quite as much about wasting it through having to throw it out because it goes bad. Couple of other things at the store. One is buy whole foods, and I'm probably going to trigger my dog here again, but as just as an example. So here's, yeah, there she is. That nose is up here right away. It's not for you. Here's some shredded cheese in a pack, and then here is a Mondo, whoops, I'll go this way to the camera, Mondo pack of cheddar cheese. And really they cost virtually the same amount of money. The shredded was 170 grams, and the big cheese was 1.5 or 1.15 kilograms. So often we go again for the convenience, and we go, oh, you know what, I hate shredded cheese. Like, I hate it. Like, I don't like it either, but you know, you're going to pay for that convenience, and that's really something that you have to decide if it's worth it, or, you know, can you convince, you know, your brother or sibling or a roommate or something to be the cheese shredder for the house or something like that. But, you know, trying to buy whole foods is a much more cost-effective way to go. Even when we look at things like going to Thrifty's, one of the classic things you see are those veggie trays and those fruit trays, and they can be really, really nutritious, and they usually have a nice assortment of vegetables and things in there, but they're really expensive. So again, if you went and bought the packages of the whole food, you could make your own individual veggie trays. And again, if you shopped with a friend and you split the cost, you could probably make numerous veggie trays for lunches or meals or snacks or whatever, just through working together on those types of things. So buying whole foods versus the easy prepared packages will go a long way for you. The other one is buy generic or store brands as well, that in Canada, any of the food that they sell has to meet certain quality. So just if you're looking at buying some beans and it's the Compliments brand from Thrifty's versus the Heinz brand, there's really going to be no difference in quality between those two. So buying the generic or store brands, if you're looking for budget wise, can be a very good thing to do as well. So again, you don't have to take all of these tips or look at all of them. Some of them will work for you, some won't, but just trying to give you a number of different things to consider. The other big thing that's really important to do if you're really trying to up the nutrition of the food that you're eating is become a huge fan of nutrition labels. And this should almost get to a point that you can very, very quickly turn a package over and look at the nutrition facts and decide if that's something that you want to include in your diet. And it is just something that you should get in the habit of doing all the time. They have recently changed the labels in Canada. So a couple of things that they've done, they're showing you the calories in sort of a bigger size, which is good for someone like me that has to wear reading glasses all the time now. But keep in mind that when they're doing this, they are talking about the serving size. So it's 170 calories per serving size. So this is for 3/4 of a cup of whatever this product is. But if this was something that they said there is 4 servings in this box or whatever this is, then keep in mind that the total calories for that box is actually 4 times that 170 calories. So that's the other thing, is really paying attention to what they consider to be a serving size. And, if you're interested in the calories. And that goes for all of the other parts that they put within a nutrition label as well. So they've sort of separated this out into some main areas. One, they are showing us the fat or the lipid content of something. So you can see in this one, the total fat is 5 grams, which makes up about 1% of the daily value, which is what they recommend that you should have per day, usually based on like 2,000 kilocalorie a day diet. And for the fats, they do now have to separate out both the saturated and the trans fats. They used to be sort of in the same line, but now they separate them out. So the difference between the total grams versus what we see here, the 3.7, will be our unsaturated fats that we have, or what people classically think are the healthier fats. So if you are worried about your saturated fats or your trans fats, again, flipping over the label, you will get a good idea. Do I want to buy this, and do I want to have this product or not? Same thing, it'll give you an idea of the cholesterol level, your sodium level as well. So that, again, we don't want to go above sort of certain levels of sodium in our diet. So whatever this is, 1 serving is going to give you 1/5 of the sodium that you should have in your diet for the day. A couple of other things under carbohydrates that they've done now is that they add the total sugars. They usually have fiber. If there's something that has fiber, they'll show that as well. But they also have to do this now and have to show the hidden sugars or the added sugars as well, which is something they didn't have in the past. So that's a good thing to get to see. Okay. So there's the fiber. This shows you some of the other nutrients that are in a food. And by law, they have to include these ones that are on here. They used to have to put in vitamin A and C. They've removed those, and now they put in vitamin D and potassium instead. So these are the ones they're required to put on. So you might see those as all zeros if this is a sort of a nutritionally defunct type of food. Or you might see that they expand this bottom part to really show a whole bunch of different nutrients. So sometimes if you have a very nutrient type of rich food, if you looked at something like on the nutrient package of oat milk, you would see that they've added a whole bunch of extra nutrients down into that bottom area down here, just to try and show its nutrition value. Okay. If you're trying to take a look at, okay, does this mean it has a little or a lot of something? These daily values are trying to give you that kind of idea. So if something is showing that it's about 5% or less of the daily value, there's a little bit in that food. If it's more than 15%, that's sort of roughly considered that it's got a lot of that. So it'll be very high in that. So again, whatever this is, we can see that it is 17% of the daily value for calcium. So this would be considered to be a very calcium rich food that we have here. It's sort of in the middle of the road for vitamin D and iron. It's certainly giving you some, but we wouldn't call it sort of a really good source of those. So my bottom line with this one is really fall in love with food labels. They become very quick and easy to read, but it is something that you should be looking at. And if you're looking at two products and you're trying to decide which one you want to buy, again, being able to compare the nutrition facts labels can be really, really helpful. Okay, so before you go, we talked about some strategies for while you were at the store and that you can look at. So now what about at home? Okay, well, probably the single best thing you can do for your budget is shop and buy wisely and then cook at home. There is no doubt about it that when you do the things like shredding your own cheese and making your own snack packs and making your meals and everything else, that is the most cost-effective way to go versus going out and eating at a restaurant or going and picking up snack foods at a convenience store. So that's the single best thing you can do. One of the other things is cook in larger portions. So if you can, cook extras and have leftovers so that, especially if you're time crunched and things, that if you could make a few different meals, and even if you could sort of have a cooking afternoon that you make a few set things for your week, maybe it's making your veggie trays up, or maybe it's cooking some chicken breasts so that you have those for, you know, your salads or whatever it is that you want later, or whatever you're going to have. Trying to cook larger portions can help. And then there's a few things you can do with that. You can either keep that for yourself, or you could share the food. So you could say, hey, you know what, I'm going to make this and I will make, you know, 4 packages of that. You make that and you make 4, and then you'll end up doing like a food swap. So if you have roommates, you could cook with your roommates and share the food, so that, or, you know, share the nights that you each cook. Or as we are in these times of COVID, that you could actually even do it that you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to cook these things, you cook those things, and we'll swap some, so that that you get some variety in what you're eating and things as well. So it's a real challenge, right? You know, certainly right now with everything we're doing, but if you get really inventive, there's lots of ways that you can eat really, really well, and you can eat with a really nice variety. So I think, oh yeah, so there we go, that do that meal share plan. I like that idea. And I've done that with some of my friends and things as well, that, you know, it's like, hey, if you make this, I'll make this, and we'll swap them. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. And in terms of my sort of talking at you, and hopefully now we can, if there's any questions, we can go over some of those, or if any of you have any other tips or things, that would be wonderful to hear about them as well. So I'll do a stop share here. We can get back onto the regular screen.
Wonderful. Lynneth, I'm going to kick it off here. I've got a couple questions. First, one thing that I really like to do is when I have those days where I absolutely do not want to cook at home, but I know I have stuff left in my fridge that I need to use. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll order something that I know I can add those leftover things to. So one thing that works really well for me is I love going to Noodle Box. And then when I get Noodle Box, I'm like, okay, I definitely will want this tomorrow. So I'll cook up some extra veggies and then maybe some quinoa and throw it all in. And then all of a sudden I have like double or triple the portion size. So that's something kind of inventive that I've found has worked for me. Just thought I'd add that in there as well. But a question that I had, you're talking about saturated fats versus unsaturated fats, and healthy fats versus not healthy fats. What are some examples of foods that are good, quick, healthy, and have like good healthy fats in them as well that you can pick up at the grocery store?
Well, usually most of our oils that we have, so our avocado oils and our olive oils and those types of things, contain really healthy fats. So if you make a very simple salad dressing for yourself with balsamic vinegars and some of those oils, you can get some amazing ones, like, you know, lime infused and those types of things. Avocados obviously are sort of one of those classic ones that we see with the healthy fats, as are fish. So a lot of our fish products have the those very healthy fats. So, you know, it's, again, if you take a look, there's all sorts of different foods that will contain, you know, some portion of fat. And what we are looking for are the ones that contain more of the polyunsaturated fats. more so than our saturated fats. And certainly we want to minimize how many trans fats we have.
We've got a question from Cheyenne here in the chat. So questions are, what are considered expensive grocery stores? I'm guessing in Victoria, I think is the question.
Right.
And how do we get coupons and use coupons?
Okay. So again, what I have found living in Victoria is like some of the sort of small local markets that, I love having them, in neighborhoods because they're really convenient, and I don't want to diss them, but, somewhere like Peppers down the hill in Caddy Bay is going to be quite a bit more expensive than what you're going to find at Thrifties or even Save On. Thrifties used to sort of be locally island grown, owned and operated. It has now changed hands into being owned by a national chain. And I've definitely noticed that the thrifty prices have gone up quite a bit. So Save On can be pretty good, and you can get like the little Save On More card, and that will give you a discount at the till. And really it does come down to doing a little bit of reconnaissance and shopping of like even asking people like, where do you shop and where do you find good deals on things? I tend to find Thrifties and Save On a little bit expensive for produce. And I love places like the Red Barn and the Root Cellar for those types of things that, it's just, you can find some really good deals on some wonderful produce in those places. But again, it's that challenge. Can you make it there or not? So I tend to shop in all of those different places, depending upon what I'm going to be buying.
Yeah. Cheyenne says here that she's in Northern BC. So I think kind of just applying that to where you are, knowing that the local farmers markets are probably great for produce, but sometimes meats can be more expensive. And then, yeah, if you have the time to permit, I'd say try and balance your shopping in that way. Sydney says, do you have any additional tips for cooking and buying for a single person?
Cooking and buying for a single person. Well, one is that if your grocery store is close enough and you've got the time to get there a few times a week, I would buy in smaller amounts and plan your meals for 1 or 2 days, have those and then go back and shop again. Because one of our biggest things is that food waste, that we waste so much money. If every time you throw something out, that's money that you're throwing out. The other big one was shopping singly. I love the idea that Liam just did, that, he will make something and then he'll sort of add to it and get extra meals going with it. And you can certainly do that even with your home stuff. Like I know when I make quinoa, I'll usually cook a bigger batch of quinoa and I'll use some in this quinoa salad, and then I'll use some somewhere else and use it sort of over the course of the next 2 or 3 days before I cook up some more. So cooking for yourself can be really challenging. What I would normally try and do, if you're okay with eating the same food sort of 1 or 2 days in a row, is cook enough for 2 meals and then have the second time. And you can change it up, and have it as, something slightly different. Maybe you make a different salad or you make different veggies with whatever your main course is, or you add things to it. But, it's, time crunch can be a big one, and then you sort of think, I'll just quickly eat, I'll pop some popcorn in the microwave and that'll be dinner tonight, and that's your brains need more food than that right now.
We've got another question here. Is there a place or person who can help me creating meal plans or something along those lines?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I mean, I'd be happy to. Like, you can send me an email, but that's a great one. I'm not teaching 155 this term, but that would actually be a really kind of cool thing to, or the 455, which is our advanced nutrition course. I'll talk with the instructor there, because there might be some students there that could help with those types of plans and things. So I think that's a great idea. That'd be a really cool mentorship kind of thing to do.
I just checked and did a quick Google search. It looks like Food Services has a campus dietitian and coordinator. So I'll just post a link to that in the chat here as well. There we go. Just reading down some of the other comments that have been said. The Save On app has a lot of great deals in addition to the card. That's something I didn't know. Peppers does offer a student discount. I believe it's 5 or 10%, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And then we got another question here from Emma Brown. So how cost effective is shopping in the bulk section for grains and baking ingredients compared to buying portion packages?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question, Emma. It's, I guess what you'd have to look is that normally on the labels, they'll give you the price per kilogram or per gram. And you could compare what that is. You'd have to actually do a little bit of math that, like, let's say you're buying some whole wheat flour or some oats, comparing, okay, how much weight is in this bag of oats and what am I then paying per gram, and then comparing that to the bulk food. So I don't really know. Classically, it's supposed to be cheaper if you're buying in the bulk food section. But whether that's always the case, it isn't necessarily so. So I think that's a calculation that I would try and do if I was going to try and figure out which one was the cheapest. So.
Yeah, I think it comes down to as well, like how quickly you're going to use the item too, right? Because there's some things in bulk, like almond flour, for example. I know that if I buy a big package of almond flour, it's like $20, but it's going to last a long time. But if I only need that small amount at a time, it's easier to go to the bulk section. But I know some things last longer than others in that way too.
Yeah, and that's the big thing it comes down to. Will you be able to use it before you have to throw it out? Because it's when we think that, again, when we look at those stats of food waste, that, we're all throwing out food, and that really is just money down the drain. So if you can try and eliminate that, that's a huge step in terms of helping your budget. So I also noticed somebody said that they shop mostly at Costco and Superstore. I wouldn't consider those expensive in terms of the absolute cost of things. No, I'm saying that wrong. Costco can be expensive because usually, like, you're buying a Mondo thing of, salad dressing or whatever else it is. And it's really a case of, will you be able to use it all before it expires? So, again, if you're going to Costco and you're buying something that perhaps you can split up with friends and each has some of it and split the cost together, then that can be a really cost-effective way to go. But if you're going to buy a Mondo thing of salad dressing that's this big that you won't get through in 3 years, and you're going to have to throw it out, then that's not going to be very cost-effective. It's better to go and buy a smaller bottle of something you can use.
Comment here, freezing is also a good way to save for meals for the next week, depending on the meal, of course. Soups and chilies are super easy to freeze. That's a great point.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say another thing that I actually just started doing. I started in the summer, and I'll tell you a bad story about it, but I actually started to take peaches and I would puree them, and then I would freeze them in little ice cube trays, and then put them in baggies after they were frozen as like little ice cube blocks of peaches, because I use those in my peach bellinis. So that's why I did it. But instead of ice cubes, I throw those in my peach bellinis. And I did that because I bought this big sort of thing of peaches and they were going bad before I could use them all. You can even do the same thing with vegetables, that if you have leftover broccoli and cauliflower and everything else, you can blend it down and you can make it almost into a puree, and you can freeze those in, like, again, little ice cube trays, keep them in your freezer. And those can be great flavor things to throw into soups and that kind of stuff as well. And then you're not throwing out leftover broccoli and cauliflower and things.
Lynneth, maybe you can give us a rundown on some of the best vegetables that are the best nutritional value for your buck.
Well, vegetables for the most part can be amazing, and really some of it's going to come down to your personal preferences, but we all know that the dark colored vegetables, so your broccolis and your kales and your sweet potatoes, any of your squashes and those types of things are just absolutely packed with nutrients. Some of the ones that are a little bit less are, things like celery, which can be great for fiber and a great filler and everything else. But if you're looking at that versus snap peas as a snack, the snap peas are actually going to contain more nutrition than the celery would. We certainly know things like Brussels sprouts, again, very, very nutritious. Your carrots are great. Your peppers are wonderful, and those they're great in so many different foods. Plus you can use them just as snack foods to have in your dip and things as well. So vegetables, really, if you want to eat really nutritiously, somehow, some way, if you don't already love vegetables, you need to figure out a way that you can get those into your diet and start to enjoy them. And that doesn't mean that you have to enjoy all of them by any means. I'm actually allergic to onion, so I don't have onion in anything at all, but I can do things like replace it with fennel and just really finely sliced fennel, and you still get that really nice flavor added to different foods. So some of that's really going to come down to some personal preferences, but try and include some of those dark green leafy vegetables, those really nice orange vegetables and things as well.
Mm-hmm. I've got another question here. It's probably going to come to personal preference as well here, but what's a reasonable amount to budget per person on food weekly? Cheyenne wrote that she spends about $45 per person in the house, so it works out to be $90 to $100 a week. So where does that kind of sit?
That's really good. It's I've actually, I think that kind of budget is a really, really reasonable type of budget to take a look at. And there are going to be some weeks that you have more and other weeks that you have less, but if it averages out to that, I think that's an excellent amount. If you think about that at $45 a week, you're not even spending, well, I'm not even going to try and do the math of that, but what, six something dollars a day per person, which is a very, very reasonable amount to deal with. So $6.50 a day or whatever it's going to be. So.
Cool. Maybe let's apply that same question about the veggies to meats. So what are some of the healthy meats to look out for?
Obviously, your fish and seafood are sort of the leaders of the pack. And again, it is going to come down to the personal preferences that we know that those ones are some of our healthiest ones that we have. Getting into then some of the poultry can also be very healthy. And we know that red meats can be, and there's a lot of people that really love their red meats, but it isn't something that really I'd recommend having every day if you do like your red meats. And again, we know for the most part, leaner cuts are better because one of our biggest sources of saturated fats can be from our meat products. Some of the biggest things to avoid in terms of the meat products really are going to be your processed meats. So, the pepperoni sticks and the salamis and all of those types of things, they have a lot of additives and they're usually really expensive for what you get as well. Like they are hard on the pocketbook for sure. So I tend to try and eat fish usually a few times a week, and again, you can buy fish frozen and be able to work with it, or things if you like prawns or shrimp and those types of things, they are really, really nutritious for you. Often at Thrifty's, I've seen them have packages of prawns 2 for $1. And if you wait for those and you buy those, then you can really get a few nice meals, and you can add them to your noodle box and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. We got another question here from Natalie. What are the best meat alternatives?
Okay, again, this is going to come down to some preferences because it depends on whether you're total vegetarian or you're lacto-ovo vegetarian. If you're lacto-ovo, obviously some of our dairy products can be a very good source of protein, as can eggs and Greek yogurt and cottage cheese and those types of dairy products. And then certainly when we get into the legumes, so taking a look at things like our chickpeas and our black beans and our kidney beans, those can be very, very healthy alternatives to meat as well. I'm not personally as big a fan of soy. I've got this Monsanto thing that irks me about them having all of the patents for soy in North America. So, but certainly those types of things can be great meat alternatives. And certainly some of our vegetables, surprisingly, can be a fairly good source of some of our proteins and things too. And we take a look at things like our broccoli and stuff and cauliflower. They can contain some small amounts of protein for us too. Normally, protein isn't a big issue for us to get enough of. Most of us in North America do get enough protein in our diet, but one of the things you have to be careful of if you're a vegetarian is your B12, your vitamin B12, because where we get most of that is going to be from our animal products. And especially as you get older, you get less able, your stomach gets less able to be able to separate out the B12 from the meat and be able to digest it and absorb it properly. And if you're a vegetarian, you're at a distinct disadvantage of having enough B12. And B12 is really, really important to us in many ways. And if somebody's deficient in B12, we can actually even start to see Alzheimer's types of symptoms happening, that people start to get forgetful and brain fog, and they can get cold and all sorts of things. So if you are a vegetarian or you don't eat a lot of meat, be aware of trying to find sources of food that are good in B12.
Got another question here. Are there any nutritional differences between fresh veggies and fruit and frozen veggies and fruit?
That's a great question. And for the most part, no, because usually what happens when they freeze fruit and vegetables, they actually flash freeze it. So it's picked and it's frozen very, very quickly. So it's at its highest nutritional value. Where I would argue, if anything, is that if you are buying produce and then you're leaving it in your fridge for 5 or 6 days or a week, that it will actually be losing some of its nutritional value while it sits there. So in some cases, frozen food could actually be more nutritious than fresh food, depending upon how you deal with it.
Something that I do, and this is a full-on honest question, can you freeze spinach? Is that something that you can freeze?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just what you'll often find with spinach, and you can buy actually frozen spinach as well. But like, it's usually fairly watery. It's kind of like bananas. Like it doesn't look pretty once it's frozen, but it still works really well, and you can still throw it into stir fries and or into a quiche, or into your omelet or whatever, and it still is really good.
Okay, great. We'll give a couple more seconds here for any more questions. I want to allow some time if people have to jump to classes or take a break before their next session. But then we'll do the draw quickly. So if you have any other questions, just post them in the chat now here. Perfect.
Good. And I know, Liam, you were going to put up our email addresses. So yeah, I'm certainly happy to chat to people at any time, or if you are looking for somebody to help you with meal planning or want some websites and that kind of thing, I'm certainly happy to give you some information.
Perfect. We got one more question in the chat here that just came through. Frozen foods get really stigmatized sometimes for having extra preservatives. Are there any other but is that the same for frozen veggies and fruits? Are there frozen preservatives in those?
Usually not. And again, flip over the package and take a look at it. But really, very rarely do they actually freeze them with anything, because they're frozen, they don't need the preservatives in them. I would guess what your mom is saying is, like, don't buy, the frozen Simply Best meals and those types of things that are those ready-made meals, because those ones tend to have more of the preservatives and other additives and flavorings and things with them. It's usually with your fruits and vegetables, if you take a look at the ingredients package, there's pretty much 1 or 2 ingredients. That's it. So
perfect. Awesome. Well, in the meantime, while this has been going on, I did our draw. So our winners are Emma Brown, Emily Wuschke, and Daniel G. So shoot me an email. My email is vikesmarketing@uvic.ca. And we can mail you your gift card, or if you live on campus, we can drop it off at your res building as well. One more time, I'm just going to post Lynneth's email too if you have any questions. And I think that'll do it for today. So thank you for all joining us. I really appreciate that you guys took the time in your day to practice and learn about some nutritional wellness. Lynneth, any send-off messages before we head out?
No, it was lovely to see you all. Thanks so much. It was really fun to do this. So Liam, thank you very much for asking me. And there's a few names and things that looked familiar to me. So I was like, oh, hey, I think I know some of these students, which is really cool. So
right on.
Great.
Cool. Well, have a great day, everybody. And
Yeah,
hopefully we get to do this and do a part 2.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone.